What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a very special episode of Easy Buckets. How are you guys doing today? I hope you're having a fantastic day so far. In today's video, I got something that I guarantee you guys are going to love, especially if you're a Brooklyn Nets fan. The Brooklyn Nets are in hot pursuit of the NBA championship, but when talking about their roster and rotation, there are a few things that I believe they could definitely improve on. For this video, we're going to be talking about the Brooklyn Nets and simply how they can prepare for a better shot at an NBA championship, because going into the playoffs, they have to be ready. We're going to be talking about the most realistic trades the Nets can make while keeping their big three of Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant. So if you want the Brooklyn Nets to win this year, you're going to like this video. But quickly, before I get on with the video, I just want to say, if you're new to the channel and love basketball, welcome to Easy Buckets. My name is Soom, and I make basketball videos literally 7 days a week. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and click this button right here, the post notification bell, to not miss any of my upcoming videos. If you watched this video and you loved it, be sure to smash that thumbs up button. I would really appreciate it. It would help out the channel a lot. But without wasting any more time, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets.
We're focused on ourselves. Like, obviously, offensively, we're really, really good. Defensively, we're not so great. And so we have to find ways to be better in that category, which we all know. And so we're working on that. And whether it's the Lakers or any other team, like, that doesn't get us excited because we're still working on ourselves, if that makes sense. So obviously, you know, we understand the caliber of the team we're playing, but then within the whole, you know, situation is we're working on ourselves. So
I expect the Brooklyn Nets to be busy during this year's NBA trade deadline because of what James Harden just said. They're good on offense, but they're absolutely terrible on defense. If you watch Brooklyn Nets games, you can already tell that on offense, they score so easily, but on the other end, they let themselves get scored on so many times. Ever since getting James Harden, a lot of the games that they won were definitely not blowout games. A lot of them were very close down to the wire. And that's why for this video, I'm going to be focusing more on the defensive end, trades the Nets can make to make them better defensively. From all the reports that we're getting from James Harden, Kyrie, they're saying that the only way they're going to win the NBA championship is if they have a deep roster, but it starts off on the defensive depth. Kyrie and James Harden are both great offensive players. They're not known to be great defenders though, and that's why this trade deadline, they're going to be making some moves. I want to show you guys quickly how amazing their offense is right now. Look at what James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant are averaging right now. KD is averaging 29 points per game, 7.3 rebounds, 5.3 assists, 0.7 steals, 1.4 blocks. And Kyrie's averaging almost the same amount of points at 28.3, 4.6 rebounds, 5.7 assists, 1.1 steals, 0.8 blocks, and James Harden is averaging almost 25 points per game, 7 rebounds, 11.3 assists. He's leading the league in assists per game with 1 steal and 1 block a game. Guys, the Brooklyn Nets have 3 players that can score more than 20 points a game. Literally almost 90 points a game between these 3 players. And if the Brooklyn Nets can keep these 3 players and find more defensive depth, I believe their shot at an NBA title, it's definitely more likely. For this video, I have 5 trade scenarios that I make the most sense for the Brooklyn Nets to make. Keep in mind DeAndre Jordan and Joe Harris will also be staying on the roster. Everybody else is tradable. The first trade on this list is the Brooklyn Nets going for PJ Tucker of the Houston Rockets, and we're talking about a forward, or in other words, a forward that's an NBA veteran that brings a tough defensive presence that could be available on the market. PJ Tucker is at the top of that list right now. PJ Tucker this season is turning 36 years old, and with him having 0 NBA championships, PJ wants to put himself in the best situation possible. We all know PJ Tucker was a part of the Houston Rockets last year with James Harden and Mike D'Antoni, who's the assistant head coach right now of the Nets, and that's why that relationship could form a potential reunion, and from what we're hearing, Tucker is interested in the Brooklyn Nets. During that time of the big James Harden trade, Tucker, alongside Harden, also requested a trade, and we just got a report that the Houston Rockets are in active talks right now with so many contenders because a lot of teams want PJ Tucker. What's very special about Tucker is that he's very unselfish. He is kind of a do-it-all guy. He plays a specific role, he's a tough defender, but also would give the Brooklyn Nets a floor spacing ability. PJ Tucker is one of the best three-point shooters at the corner spot. And with the Brooklyn Nets all being great at those driving kicks, Kyrie, Harden, and even KD, Tucker, in my opinion, would be a perfect option to be and play a small ball lineup or even start at the power forward spot. If the Nets can offer up Spencer Dinwiddie, Tyler Johnson, and their 2021 second round pick in exchange for PJ Tucker, David Waba, Daniel House Jr., and their 2024 second round pick, I believe this would be a great deal for both sides of the story. On the Rockets' perspective, they'll be getting Dinwiddie, who we all know in the past have proven to be a great six-man, a great leader, and a great point guard for an NBA team. He averaged about 20 points last year when Kyrie Irving was out, and of course getting Tyler Johnson and a future second-round pick wouldn't be a bad idea. But on the Nets' perspective, look how much defensive depth they're getting. David Waba is also a tough defender, a young defender that's a 3-and-D presence, and of course Daniel House Jr. He has so much potential. I believe this trade is a win-win for both teams. If the Nets ultimately get PJ Tucker, they'll finally have someone that can kind of guard LeBron, or guard Kawhi Leonard, or guard Giannis, guard the toughest players in the NBA, and right now, they need that. Imagine a starting lineup of Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, PJ Tucker, or maybe Joe Harris or DeAndre Jordan. I believe this lineup would help them defensively a lot. The next player on this list is Daniel Theis of the Boston Celtics, and if the Brooklyn Nets want another center, I believe Theis could be a great available target. We all know what just happened in that big James Harden trade. They lost Jarrett Allen, who was their secondary center behind DeAndre Jordan, and from the looks of it, they need a center that can fill that void, and Daniel Theis could be available. With the Boston Celtics using Tristan Thompson a lot right now and focusing their future on Robert Williams, Daniel Theis has a lot of trade value in the NBA, and from what we're hearing, he could be in the trade market as the Boston Celtics this year also want to go full throttle for the NBA championship. What's very special about Theis is his defensive ability, but also his ability to spread the floor at the center spot. And right now with the NBA valuing a lot of bigs that can shoot a 3-ball, Theis is a low-end, cheap option that could be better than his value. The Boston Celtics have a lot of bigs right now, and what they need more is a small forward, power forward player that can spread the floor and be a great defensive presence at a quicker speed, and that's why this trade makes sense. If the Nets can offer up Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot and Bruce Brown in exchange for Daniel Theis and Carson Edwards, I believe this would be a great deal for both sides of the story. On the Celtics' perspective, they'll definitely be getting an upgrade of Bruce Brown over Carson Edwards, and getting TLC, who is improving game after game. The Boston Celtics might want him in their locker room. Daniel Theis was a big part of the Boston Celtics run to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, so I'm not sure if the Celtics will trade him, but from what we're hearing, the Boston Celtics wouldn't mind trading at least one of their 4 big men to get a forward to give them more wing depth. But the next player on this list is Tristan Thompson, also of the Boston Celtics, and if the Boston Celtics ultimately don't end up trying to trade Daniel Theis, Tristan Thompson is the next guy up that could be available. We all know Tristan Thompson has had a relationship with Kyrie Irving. They were teammates on their Cavaliers NBA championship run, and I believe that relationship could form a potential reunion in Brooklyn. The Brooklyn Nets need a backup center right now to kind of play a 6-man role, and with Tristan Thompson all his life being a dominant 6-man off the bench to literally put up double-doubles, crash the offensive boards, the Brooklyn Nets need that right now. What's very special about TT is that he brings a lot of veteran leadership, a lot of NBA championship experience, and he brings a lot of presence, especially at the 5 spot. And with Tristan Thompson being younger than DeAndre Jordan, I believe there are some times in some games, Tristan would actually close over DeAndre. The Brooklyn Nets have a lot of strong playmakers of Kyrie and James Harden, and getting a more dominant pick-and-roll player of Tristan Thompson, who's a more established than DeAndre Jordan, especially on the offensive end, I believe this will give the Nets a better overall outlook at that center position. If the Nets can offer up TLC, Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, and Tyler Johnson in exchange for Tristan Thompson, I believe this would not be a bad deal that fits both sides. The Celtics want more forward depth, and that's why TLC is there, and of course getting Tyler Johnson to be a spark plug off the bench, to be a floor spacer and a potential playmaker, because right now they don't have Marcus Smart. It might be a good trade for the Boston Celtics as well. I would love to see the Nets go for Tristan Thompson or Daniel Tice of the Boston Celtics. The next player on this list is Javille Mcgee of the Cavaliers, and Javille Mcgee is a very popular center right now that could be assisting an NBA championship contender very soon. We all know what just happened in that big James Harden trade. Jared Allen got sent to the Cavaliers, which made Javille Mcgee literally fall out of the rotation. As I make this video, the Cavaliers have so much bigs. They have Andre Drummond, they have Kevin Love, they have Larry Nance Jr., of course they have Jared Allen, and they have Javille Mcgee. And from the looks of it, the Cavs are trying to get rid of two bigs. And from what we're hearing, it's Andre Drummond and Javille Mcgee. Javille Mcgee this year doesn't have an expensive contract, and that's why I believe with the Cavaliers focusing more on getting depth at the forward and guard position, this is very important for the Cavs to make a trade for the Brooklyn Nets. I would love to see Javille Mcgee on the Brooklyn Nets because he brings more NBA championship experience, he brings veteran leadership, and with the Brooklyn Nets needing a shot blocker, Javille Mcgee is an elite player at that percentage and at that level. If the Nets can offer up Landry Shamet in exchange for Javille Mcgee in a 1-for-1 deal, I believe this makes sense as the contracts match and the Cavaliers get a floor spacer, which they much need right now. They need a sharpshooter. On the Brooklyn Nets perspective, Javille Mcgee coming off the bench will be great. He's a high energy kind of player that just gives the Brooklyn Nets a better all-around defensive aspect. Javille Mcgee is a very popular target the Nets are pursuing right now, and honestly, he's one of the most likely. The next player on this list is Hassan Whiteside of the Sacramento Kings, and he's the most popular target when it comes to a contender looking for a dominant and elite shot blocker. As of right now, Hassan Whiteside is not having the best situation on the Kings. He's the third center behind Richaun Holmes, Marvin Bagley, but we all know he's capable of doing more. Last season, being the starting center for the Portland Trail Blazers, Whiteside averaged about 15 points, 13 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game. He led the league in blocks, and honestly, I believe his usage, his potential, will be great on the Brooklyn Nets. Hassan Whiteside's on a 1-year contract, and from what we're hearing, he's not going to resign, which puts the Kings in a position to trade him this trade deadline instead of losing him for nothing, as right now he has a lot of value. A lot of teams want him. If the Brooklyn Nets can offer up Landry Shamet in exchange for Hassan Whiteside in a 1-for-1 deal, I believe this makes sense as the Kings get more floor spacing to assist the playmakers of Tyrese and De'Aaron Fox, and of course the Nets get a center, which they are looking for right now. Imagine having DeAndre Jordan and Hassan Whiteside in the exact same roster. That just gives the Nets so much defensive depth in the starting lineup and off the bench. I believe Whiteside would be a deal breaker on why the Brooklyn Nets actually win the NBA championship. Hassan Whiteside's being linked to so many contenders, the Clippers, the Lakers, and the Brooklyn Nets, and in my opinion, whatever team he goes to, he'll just give a significant boost. So ultimately guys, this wraps up my video for today on the Brooklyn Nets and 5 trades that I believe they can make to simply get better on the defensive end. What's most important to me is what are your thoughts? Are these trades realistic? Are these trades likely? Are there any of the players you believe the Nets should target? Put everything you're thinking in the comment section down below, but other than that, take it easy, God bless, and I'll see you all next time on Easy Buckets. Woo!